Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Behind Enemy Lines. Just a quick note, I actually lost power when we first started recording this video, so the first 20 minutes or so, my video is gone. Luckily, the lookers of the show, Andy and Ziggy, are fine, so they'll be there, but I'm just going to replace my video with the Paul Farrington Show logo, and about midway through, you'll see my video back. So apologies for that. Don't really know what happened, but it's right after I make a joke about Ziggy, so maybe some powers that be were upset about that. But appreciate again everyone watching and enjoy the video. Welcome into Behind Enemy Lines, a collaboration between the Paul Farrington Show and the Pack-A-Day Podcast. Paul, joined by Robert Ziggy Ziegler and Andy Herman of the Pack-A-Day Podcast for what feels like it might be turning into a Andy Herman therapy session. I hope that Andy, that Ziggy and I can be a good use today. Look, the Broncos game from a couple weeks ago felt like it couldn't get much worse, and then the Chicago game on Saturday night truly left me in shock. And I'm not a Packers fan, not a Bears fan. I'm just a neutral party watching this. My team's been eliminated for a while here, and I couldn't help look at the television, going like, oh my God, I need to call my Packers friends, like make sure they're okay. So now that you've had a few days to sort of digest this, it's looking like the Packers are going to go to the playoffs. At least you got that going for you. How are you feeling a couple days after the disaster?
Well, you mentioned that last part first. I think as just brutal, and we'll talk about that momentarily, as that 6-day period was between the Broncos game and the Bears game. I think what would have broke me is if the Steelers blew that game on Sunday. If they would have blown that one on Sunday, I think I would have been truly broken, of just like, this is the season from hell and there's no coming back from it. And, Green Bay would have had opportunities still to make the playoffs with 2 wins, or a variety of things could have happened to get in. But it just was like, all right, well, at least the Steelers are winning this game. They've got the lead and they're going to kick a field goal to go up 8, and maybe Detroit ties it. But and then they missed the field goal. And one of the most reliable kickers in the league misses a very makeable field goal in good conditions, and then in perfect conditions. And then of course, Lions go right down. And then you get that point where it was Amon-Ra or whoever got the first touchdown. And then they got called for the push off. And as soon as the touchdown happened, I'm just like, this is insane. This is absolutely insane. And then thankfully, the football gods actually smiled upon us for a few seconds, and back-to-back, offensive pass interference penalties, saved the complete disaster fest of what could have been for that weekend. And again, gave at least a glimmer of hope. But I talked about this a little bit the other day. Green Bay's had some of the most heart-wrenching playoff losses that I can ever, that anyone should have to go through. There is at least when that happens, a finality to things. You don't have to go and relive that the very next week again and have another heartbreaking, crucial loss. To go through the Denver situation, where again, everything was going as perfectly as it could have, 9-point lead with the ball, nobody's hurt yet. Zach Tom was banged up, but outside of that, you're feeling pretty good. To the disaster that happened there, and Micah going out for the year. And then to your point, it's like, well, they can't hurt us again this week, right? Like you can't. And then to have literally relive the 2014 NFC Championship game live and in living color in almost the exact same way that game goes down, missing red zone opportunities early, failing to get an onside kick recovery, having a crazy rollout play, just like Russell Wilson did on the 2-point conversion, just like Caleb Williams did in the back of the end zone where Keyshawn Nixon blows the coverage, and then to basically a 50-yard bomb-ish in overtime to lose the game. It's just the exact same script, and to have to live that over, that's as brutal of a 6-day period that any team should have to kind of go through in the NFL. And yeah, again, it would be one thing if you had 2 losses, but Micah was healthy, Jordan was healthy, Zach Tom's healthy, Evan Williams is you still have a really good team and everything's pushing forward. But now it's no, we're going to take your starting quarterback. Also, your backup quarterback's also going to get hurt. And you might have to play Baltimore with Clayton Thune this week. We're recording this on Monday for those of you who are listening on Wednesday, obviously. But we don't know what the quarterback situation is as of now, but it's not great. And it's just been one of those weeks.
Imagine we get a Clayton Thune, Tyler Huntley matchup on Saturday. Who knows what that game's gonna look like on Saturday night?
I'll be on. Watching this game, I mean, Paul and I were texting as the middle of this game was going on, and we had the Packers narrative down pat. Malik Willis saves the season. yet another instance where the Packers, it seems like things are going wrong, and then miraculously things break their way. A quarterback who is cast aside by some other franchise comes in, plays really well, takes them to the victory. And until about 4 minutes left in the game, that was what we were going to run with. We had the title, we had the thumbnail, everything was perfect.
2 minutes, 2 minutes in the game.
Yeah. And then I discovered the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers might not be so different after all. Like, it was just, I could not believe. And of course, it makes sense that a special teams failure and Romeo Doubs dropping the ball costs you the game. Like, this is in fact how it's been in Green Bay for years. But seeing it go that way, I couldn't believe what I was watching.
Well, you could pick so many different things too from what went wrong for Green Bay. And Andy, I mean, you noted off the top there the red zone inefficiency. I just rewatched the game before we hopped on here, and you guys moved the ball inside the 15-yard line on every drive except overtime. It was like, I mean, you had 4 drives, your first 4 drives get inside really like the 10-yard line, and you walk away with 6 points. And I was trying to go back and say, like, all right, was there play calling that didn't work? And I didn't like on your second drive. I didn't like the swing pass out to Emmanuel Wilson. That I thought that one was a bad play call. But you know, part of it too was just Jacobs fumbles, and that's kind of a tough break right there. You just weren't able to put Chicago away early, and I actually caught a lot of flack in our post game reaction that I did. Because I said, Green Bay kind of kicked ass this game, and Chicago really stole it at the end. And I had a bunch of Bears fans come in and be like, "Yeah, clearly you weren't watching." Like, and I'm not trying to get on Bears fans' bad sides. I think Caleb Williams was great at the end of the game. The touchdown throw was unbelievable, but it was absolutely a game where Green Bay's marching up and down the field all night. And I guess you gotta give credit. Like, Nashawn Wright makes a great play on the Jacobs fumble, and Ben don't break. But I thought, watching this one, to me, I was like, oh, Green Bay is the better football team here, at least on this night.
The narrative that switches if Romeo just catches that onside kick recovery. We're talking about Matt LaFleur having one of the great coaching performances with all of his players hurt going into Chicago, basically having the opportunity to win the NFC North because of that game. Jeff Hafley's defense only allows 9 points. There is no Keyshawn Nixon back-to-back touchdowns allowed at the end of the game. There is no, Romeo Doubs were celebrating because he had, 80 plus yards, a key touchdown, and was one of the key fixtures in that game rather than basically blowing it at the end. And we're talking about that. And then meanwhile, in Chicago, you're talking about Ben Johnson and this amazing offense only putting up 9 points on Green Bay's defense, despite not having Micah Parsons, a defense that couldn't beat Malik Willis at quarterback, and all the Packers injuries. Caleb Williams would have had like 100 and some passing, or 120, 130, 140, somewhere in that range, passing yards in this game. And I think if you're a Chicago fan, it's probably one of the most dejecting losses in the this is a huge game. You could tell Bears fans were so fired up for this game.
Crowd was great. Crowd was unbelievable.
Yes, absolutely. It's playoff atmosphere. And to get beat by Malik Willis and no Micah Parsons, no Zach Tom, no Tucker Kraft, no Devontae Wyatt, Josh Jacobs is barely playing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The narrative completely switches a billion degrees if you just have that onside kick recovery, but you don't. And all of that stuff ends up happening. And Caleb Williams has arguably his greatest, maybe 2 moments as a Bears quarterback so far. The offense ends up, being the huge catalyst at the end. The defense gets, the huge stop on the 4th down. Obviously, the fumbled snap was the key piece there. But it's a 1,000,000,000% different narrative if you just catch an onside kick recovery. And everyone's celebrating Green Bay to the nth degree. And I think really questioning where Chicago's at after that game. And instead, in Chicago, by the way, well, Detroit lost, so they're probably not fighting for their playoff spot. But either way, just a huge narrative change, and it doesn't go that way. They don't recover the onside kick, and everything changes.
I felt bad for Doubs too, because I thought he had a really nice game. A couple of those catches he made, the one where he scooped it off the ground. Of course, he had the touchdown catch as well.
Yep.
And you just see Packers fans are all commenting, "Can't wait to get Romeo out of here this offseason." It's like, it's a tough play. But yeah, well, you were saying that you were upset with Bisaccia, right? You were saying like for having him in that position.
So a couple things, at the end of the day, if Romeo just catches the ball, we're not talking about Bisaccia. The special teams played fine in that game outside of that play. But what I would say is if you look at that play closely, and how that play is set up, you're blocking on the play. Javon Bullard does a phenomenal job. He does a phenomenal job with his block. Xavier McKinney gets completely blown through on his block. I'm not sure that that's the player that you necessarily want in that situation blocking up front. Bo Melton gets barely a fingertip on his guy, and the guy goes right through him. So 2 of the 3 guys that are set up to block in front of that do not do their job. And then, Romeo obviously mishandles the kick, and Romeo, to his credit, owned it in the locker room, said it's 1,000% on me, said they repped it throughout the course of the week, which is all your special teams coach to some extent could do. They clearly didn't rep it enough because the blocking up front was brutal, and Romeo looked like he completely panicked on the play. It's like a shortstop in baseball that lets the ball play him rather than him playing the ball, and just not having the wherewithal to bat that thing out of bounds or do anything different. And to literally let it hit him in the chest. It's a tough bounce. I get it. But to let that hit him in the chest and have that happen, and then really had an opportunity to recover, couldn't recover.
Yeah, I thought he did recover it at first. It bounced right in front of him.
Yeah, so it's right there to recover, doesn't recover. So it's a brutal play by Romeo, and there's no urgency by anyone else. Keyshawn kind of comes up from behind afterwards and kind of gets involved in it, but the other players around him are just kind of jogging to the play. You have to have extreme urgency in that situation. Games on the line, you recover this, you win. And it just felt like the players were not prepared. They weren't ready. They weren't urgent. And yeah, maybe they did rep it, but they clearly didn't rep it enough because that play went about as disastrously as you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, and it felt like after they recovered that, I was about to hit, publish on the video title and everything that for our reaction. And the moment they recovered that, I was like, this doesn't feel good if you're a Green Bay fan. And as soon as it went to overtime, it had that feeling. I remember the Vikings Saints. Why do I do this to myself? The Vikings Saints NFC Championship game. There are some games where when it gets to overtime, you just feel like you're screwed. And that was one where you could kind of tell the way it was going. And I thought Malik actually did a great job, a great pass to Reed right off the start of overtime. And then they had the 4th down. There's just so many different moments that you could pick for Green Bay. Maybe the most forgotten one is the face mask on 3rd and 20, where Brinson, right? It was, I believe it was
Warren Brinson, yep.
And I mean, you have the sack there, game's over again. Like it was just an unfathomable collection of errors from Green Bay again. But Ziggy, I wanted to ask you, since you're, at least in my belief, not a Packer fan. Other people might say differently. But when I was watching Green Bay in that game, I actually was sitting back thinking, okay, if Love comes back, you have to actually feel there are some positive takeaways that you can have as a Packer fan, especially now that you're going to go to the playoffs. In all likelihood, you get Chicago in the first round. And I'd have to imagine you feel like you can win that game after what happened Saturday night.
So I will say, if I were a Packers fan, I am starting to get a little nervous about missing the playoffs. If you lose your next 2, the picture gets murky. And as we all know, this Minnesota Vikings team is a world beater.
Okay.
The Vikings can beat anybody. I mean, they beat the Commanders 31 at home. So, but setting that aside, assuming they get in, the Packers are a very talented team and they're a very deep team. And we've been saying for 2 years on this show now that what we're waiting for is for stars to break out. And it's unfortunate that it feels like in Green Bay this year, immediately once a star is broken out, they've had an injury. But you're probably going to get your most important players back, assuming Jordan Love doesn't get stuck in concussion protocol forever. I don't feel terrible about this game if I were a Packers fan, just because the offense moved up and down the field. There have been red zone issues, but you should score more than 16 given how you performed this game. You needed multiple fluky plays from Chicago. But also, unfortunately, Green Bay has put themselves in situations where fluky plays from teams have cost them games all year. Right? It's not as if Green Bay has been able to take care of business against the Browns or against the Panthers. So in the playoffs, I'm confident that the team will lock in and that they'll be able to get something done if they're going to Chicago. But it is starting to become a problem that all the fluke plays, it seems, break against the Packers, and they're not ready to take advantage of luck when it comes their way.
Yeah, and Andy, I have to imagine, for you as a Packer fan, you win that game and you're the 2 seed. All of a sudden, after a week where everyone was saying season's over, if you beat Chicago and your path now, in all likelihood, is Chicago again in round 1, and then you're probably going to have, Philly maybe come in. Or that's who I'd imagine it would be.
Yep.
Like you're thinking to yourself, like we actually might go to the NFC Championship game here. Getting those games in Lambeau, And I wouldn't rule it out necessarily if you have to go to Chicago and then go to Seattle, but it's just the route was there in that game. I still don't think though that you guys are screwed. Like if you're Chicago and you get them back, I'm now be a ton of fun because the fan bases are just so engaged right now. And I think you're going to see Packers fans kind of wake up in the rivalry a little bit more now that Bears fans are talking, as much trash as they are following the game. And, when you win a game like that, I think it's okay to talk a little smack. But where do you stand right now on the team's ability to go on a run here?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same spot ultimately that I was, and that I still think that this team can beat anybody on any given day and hang with anyone. And every team feels fairly flawed in some way at the moment. And I think the good news is that every team's fairly flawed and you have the opportunity to win. The bad news is that every team is flawed. And if you just have Micah Parsons, Tucker Kraft, Jordan Love, Evan Williams, Zach Tom, Devontae Wyatt, etc., it feels like everything is right there for the taking. And unfortunately, injuries are derailing that to a pretty heavy extent. But I still think your offense was basically built around Tucker Kraft at one point this season. Micah Parsons is obviously a massive part of the defense. While I think they can win any game, I think winning 4 in a row is going to be exceedingly difficult, just based on how this team is set up. You win and lose in the trenches, and I still think the offensive line and defensive lines have major question marks. I think Jeff Hafley did an unbelievable job of scheming up some pretty awesome stuff this past week against Chicago, but they're going to face tougher challenges than Chicago's defensive front. As we know, Chicago's defensive front, that's an Achilles heel and a weakness of theirs. And so I still have concerns in the long term as to whether this team can actually make major noise. But again, they have the ability to beat anyone on any given week, and you just have to take it one game at a time. We'll see what, again, their health situation is against Baltimore. Hopefully take care of Minnesota. Hopefully that's not a must-win game and they can just take care of Baltimore. I'm sure Minnesota would love nothing else than to eliminate Green Bay from playoff contention if it came into that situation. But assuming Green Bay can take care of business, you just go to likely Chicago first and try to win that game. And that would be a powder keg of a game because those two fan bases and those two teams, a lot of dislike at the moment. It would be a pretty fun playoff atmosphere.
Would you go to that?
Probably not. Just road games are a little bit tougher. It's a lot easier to cover the game. From here in my office than
You're right. I totally forgot you're doing the reaction right after.
Yeah. So it's just, I theoretically could. But yeah, I probably would not. But obviously if it ends up somehow being a Packers home game, then yeah, I would definitely be there.
And that's still on the table. I'm just imagining coming back from the record, Packers win in Chicago. You got a couple black guys. You're like, great win tonight. had an awesome time at the game.
Yes.
I actually have a question that might get you in some trouble with the Packers.
Let's go.
Andy. Not really, but it might, because I have a feeling you could know the answer to this. I'm watching the game transpire after Jordan goes down, and Malik Willis comes in, and I was texting a bunch of my friends. Ziggy and I have a lot of Packers and Bears fans from when we were at school in Indiana, and a handful of them were at the game, and I'm texting with them, and when Malik's on that opening drive and Emmanuel Wilson's running well and they have him, convert the 4th and 1 on the keeper, I'm like, yeah, like this is kind of what it's looked like when Malik Willis has been in. And I sent them a text like in tiny font that said, the thing is, he can't really throw the football. And, I owe Malik Willis an apology because to me, that's the best he's thrown the ball since coming over as a Packer. And I'm watching the game continue on, and the pass to Dobbs is just picture perfect. I'm like, the wind's whipping around here. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, what the hell are the Packers doing? Like, how do the Packers find these ways? I'm not writing him off as a Hall of Fame quarterback or anything, but, he just looked really impressive for a backup. And, Vikings backups have come in and it's pretty much, shut down the offense. We could go home today.
Our starter came in and shut down the offense.
Yeah. All right. Is there something that you've seen with the Packers, or is there something that you've heard through the organization of the way they develop quarterbacks that, maybe not the secret sauce, but just something that they do to put these guys in a position to play as well as they do every single time they're on the field?
Yeah. The first thing I'll say is I'll give both Jordan and Malik a ton of credit. I mean, I saw Jordan when he first came to Green Bay, and I think we've talked about this, but I mean, he could check it down, and that was about it. I mean, if he had to, if he was in the JJ McCarthy situation where he had to like basically sit out that first year and then play in year two, that was the first time we really got to look at him because his rookie year was the COVID year. So we got to look at him like mini camp and OTAs and training camp the following year. I mean, he would have been 1,000,000,000% not ready. And we kind of saw it in that Kansas City game when he had to go in, just not ready. And the growth that he has put in specifically to his game to get to where he is now is really, really remarkable. So ton of credit to him. And I think Malik Willis too, as even keeled and just not trying to do too much in those situations, taking what's there and, using his legs when he needs to. He's like the ultimate perfect backup quarterback where he brings a different element to the table. When you ask him to do some pretty simple stuff, he can do it at a very high level. And then he's got the ad lib ability on top of it and the running ability on top of it that gives the defense something that they didn't prepare for all week, something that they now have to deal with. That to me, I think if you ask him if some team this offseason is like, yeah, we think he can be the star. Like if he goes to Cleveland or, anything like that, I think it's going to be a really long season for that team. I don't think you can put him in that scenario and have him be consistently successful. But in this type of scenario, man, he is worth his value in gold because he comes in and executes so incredibly well. But I think the answer to your question is not even necessarily a developmental thing. And I know there's Packers fans that just don't believe this or want to live with their head in the sand. Matt LaFleur does such an incredible job of getting his quarterbacks in situations to be successful. In fact, I would actually argue if you go and watch the film of the offense in this one, there were a ton of opportunity. The Christian Watson one coming across the field where if he hits Watson, that's a touchdown. They ended up not getting points on that drive. There was a couple other ones too. Obviously the play to Dobbs, he gets the wide open, the pretty damn open look there. And there were a couple others too, where he had players that were screaming open. And these were plays that were set up early in the game by some of the play sequencing that Matt LaFleur put in. I know sometimes people get upset with certain plays that don't feel like they're the right. Sometimes Matt is calling plays and they're only going to get, maybe a yard or two here or there, but it's to set up potential 70-yard play later. And I thought Matt did an unbelievable job of play sequencing and also just having an offense ready that Malik Willis is capable of operating in. A lot of this was one read and get the ball out of your hands, which again is works for him. And then again, it's Malik being able to ad lib on some of those plays where maybe it doesn't go exactly according to plan. That's a pretty good matchup. And again, especially for a backup quarterback, you can't ask for anything more, but I give a ton of credit to Matt for how he's, put in offenses that both Jordan and Malik, two totally separate quarterbacks that do things very, very differently, can both succeed in and adjust accordingly depending on who the quarterback is at the time.
It'll be interesting to see what the Packers do with Malik Willis next year. The free agent quarterback market is not very strong. He very well might be the top option. Like he's competing against Marcus Mariota, Daniel Jones off an Achilles injury, Trey Lance, Mitch Trubisky, Jimmy G. Like he will be one of the more desired free agent quarterbacks if a team wants him. And it'll be interesting to see if Green Bay tries to hold on to him, if some team wants to give him a spot at a starting job. So you've seen this year, he's been really important for the Packers.
Yeah, I think the really interesting thing with Malik Willis is, obviously he's been playing really well when given an opportunity. And even if no team is willing to give him the starting position, I think where you potentially look at is, like, let's say a team, no offense, like Minnesota is looking for a backup quarterback or, maybe one of those quarterbacks who could be a spot starter in certain situations. So let's say it's a 2-year, $16 million deal and Minnesota and Green Bay are offering him the same contract. You're probably willing to go where there's not as established of a quarterback as Jordan Love, even on a backup role, knowing that, hey, if McCarthy or whoever that team is, if their starting quarterback struggles, like I could legitimately get a chance to start throughout the year, where with Jordan, the only opportunity is if he gets hurt. So even if the money is equal, which I don't know that it will be, because again, Green Bay's pretty tight on finances. If there's any team that doesn't have as good of a quarterback situation that wants to pay him as much as Green Bay's willing to pay or more, I just don't see why he doesn't take that opportunity somewhere else.
It is really amazing how he's turned it around, where now we're talking about Malik Willis possibly being a starting quarterback next season. And I still think, I agree with you, Andy. I think it's still unlikely that is the case, but just from where this guy was to where he is now. And it's what's kind of amazing about it too, is there hasn't really been a growing period for him publicly, right? We've seen him come in games and he's just played really well and he's been very serviceable as a backup. And Ziggy, when you were rattling off all the quarterbacks who could potentially be on the table this offseason. Like, Kyler Murray is someone that jumps out to me, and he's someone that, as a Viking fan, I'm thinking in the back of my mind here, is that a name we could potentially be interested in? And maybe Malik Willis or someone like Malik Willis will make a little more sense, because if you bring in Kyler Murray, he's going to want to start. Like, he's going to want to play wherever he goes. And what's so frustrating right now about the whole JJ McCarthy situation, and now, he hurts his hand yesterday, the third injury he's had this season, where who knows if he'll wind up missing time. Unless, did you guys see? I haven't seen anything on McCarthy yet, but I know the X-rays were negative. But if he winds up missing,
there's not a lot of information yet on Monday. But
yeah,
if there's any, we've seen of the Vikings before. If there's any risk he can get re-aggravated, they're going to hold him out.
And it's just really tough watching this happen, because the only reason we're watching the Giant game is to see JJ grow and to see him progress. And finally, you feel like you're getting it, and he's hurt again. So the Vikings are going to have a really difficult decision on what they're going to do at the quarterback position next year. But it doesn't get any easier when JJ's not on the field. So a guy like Malik Willis might wind up being someone that they're taking a serious look at, because I think the answer is bring in a veteran to compete with JJ. And if JJ's not ready, like, could you even sit him again for another year? Like, is that something? I mean, Andy, like, the Packers get applauded for their patience. Is it something that's possible, you think, where the Vikings can actually have JJ sit down for one more year and whoever comes in and takes over?
I mean, organizationally, yes. I don't know McCarthy well enough to know how he would respond to that situation. If that's something that he and his agents are going to be like, no, absolutely not. But I mean, I don't think that they have any leverage. I don't think any team is going to be batting down Minnesota's door to trade premium draft capital for JJ McCarthy to make him a starter or anything like that. So I just don't think they have any leverage in this situation. And Minnesota, like, their front office and their coaching staff, I would assume, are going to be under some pressure to go out and perform next year at a higher level than they did this year. And I think it would be probably malpractice if they just said, yeah, we're going to put all our eggs in the JJ McCarthy basket again. So I think it ultimately depends on what type of quarterback they acquire and how aggressive they are in doing so. We know it doesn't look like, maybe outside of the maybe top 2 picks, depending on what happens here, there's going to be much of a quarterback draft class in this particular class. Now, maybe that changes, but as of right now, it doesn't look that way. And it doesn't look like it's going to be a great free agency or maybe even trade opportunity unless Joe Burrow somehow becomes available. Yeah, that's the last thing we need in the division. Don't get your hopes up. But no, unless something like that happens, it's hard to imagine that perfect scenario, which is why, again, you guys are talking Malik Willis. We talked Geno Smith last week. There's been, some other Kyler Murray's names. It just, you're kind of picking from the scrap heap right now. And that's obviously not a position somebody wants to be in.
But I think whatever you do, Paul, I don't think the option can be sit JJ McCarthy another year and then roll out hoping he can be ready year 4. Because at that point, Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi are staking 2 full seasons on, we've got a plan for JJ McCarthy in year 4, heading into either the 5th year option, which we've already had to pick up, or the contract year, to be a competent starter without seeing any more game data than we have up until this point. And if it's coaching malpractice to let JJ McCarthy be the undisputed starter next year, which I certainly agree it is, so too is it coaching malpractice to say we're going to stake the next 2 years of an organization that still has Hall of Fame level players on it, hoping that JJ McCarthy will become something because we saw 2 pretty good games against some of the worst defenses in the NFL his sophomore year.
It just has to be one of the most unenviable positions for any team right now. It would have
been better if he sucked the last 2 games, honestly.
In some ways, yeah. I'm watching the Tankathon, Andy, of our draft pick, and we're like the 5th closest team to the playoffs right now. And we're gonna be. I thought 12 was the magic number. We're gonna be picking like 14 or 15 at this rate. And if we beat Detroit, we actually will jump them too, amazingly, which, starts to ruin your schedule for next season. You want that last place schedule too. That's one favorable thing. So it's a total nightmare. Gosh, I didn't even think about the last place schedule until right now. But I just have no idea what we're going to look like. And I tweeted out as a joke, Joe Burrow hands off to Jeremiah Love. that's where I'm going to go off in that fantasy land. And hope that some way, somehow, Burrow gets fed up in Cincinnati and everything's good next year.
Even in your fantasy scenario where Joe Burrow is a Minnesota Viking, I hate to break it to you, you're not going to have a first round pick.
You're right. Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah, you're
situation. Right. So I hate to tell you, even in that scenario, I don't see that one specifically coming to fruition.
Yeah, even in my dream, I was telling Ziggy, we briefly spoke about it when that was I don't even want to call it a story, when that was just something that Vikings fans were dreaming of. And Ziggy goes, he's going to get hurt, Paul, right? And I told him, well, not necessarily. Like, the Joe Burrow Viking storyline is we are unbelievable, go to the NFC Championship game, something horrible happens, then the next year he tears his ACL or something. Like that feels like Joe Burrow in Minnesota. But man, could you imagine if he was there, what our division would look like going into next season? Take your pick. Who's going to win it? That would be awesome for us.
Okay, I'm gonna play the role of Bengals GM for a moment. All right, I want to see. All right, here's the deal that you have to give up for Joe Burrow next year. What's your draft capital next year? You have your full slate of picks next year? I don't know off the top of my head.
I believe we do. Yes,
we have basically everything, and I think we've got.
We got a couple notes.
The camera gave out. We should have a third round pick coming in for Sam Darnold too.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm the Bengals. I want all three of your first round picks that you can trade this year, the next year, and the following year. I want your second and third round pick this year, and I want Jordan Addison and Jalen Redmond. That's those are my demands of what I want in return. And McCarthy too, because I need a young quarterback. So McCarthy, Redmond, Addison, first, second, third, and then 2 future firsts for Joe Burrow. You taking it? Yes or no?
I think yeah. Yeah, I think
I don't think you understand where we are, Andy. I stopped listening when you said I'm going to present you a trade offer for Joe Burrow.
So did I, honestly. He's like, yeah, whatever he said.
What if it's 3 firsts and Justin Jefferson?
Even better. I don't know why. Like, the problem I have with adding Joe Burrow actually is how you're supposed to do Burrow plus Justin Jefferson, like making all that work. We've seen the Bengals really struggle with it. I love Justin Jefferson. He is a Hall of Fame player, but this is a Hall of Fame quarterback. I'll take that every day.
I would love to see the Bengals have T. Higgins, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase with no quarterback, with JJ McCarthy or something like that at quarterback. Just perfect.
That would be really fun to watch. McCarthy with 3 of the top 15 receivers and 2 of the top 5 receivers in football. Higgins,
maybe the top 2 wide receivers in football. Yeah,
that would be. The Bengals would be must watch TV. Their games would be either 49-0, they're losing because McCarthy sucks, or they'd be like 56-49 because you just can't make a mistake. But yeah, I think it actually would be worth it. I said sell the farm. I really think you have to try that. If he was on the table seriously, which Joe Burrow won't be, but if you could go get a guy like that, he's 28 years old, right? I think he just turned 28. You sacrifice 3 years of the organization to try to take that swing, because if he works out,
29,
turned 29. Like, yeah,
what did he say when he was in Cincinnati? He said, "I am the window."
Yeah.
And we've got a defensive coordinator for now in Brian Flores, who's the king of getting more production out of less players, right? We can add guys that don't fit into other teams at good deals. Like, we could put a functional defense around Joe Burrow.
If you call the Bengals, like if Kwesi called them, though, I have to imagine it's just goodbye. Like, that has to be the whole conversation with Cincinnati.
Oh, it's going to take Joe Burrow demanding to be gone and willing to not play for Cincinnati before they even would remotely consider trading him. And then even in that case, you have to be the highest bidder and be willing to be somewhere that Joe Burrow wants to go. I think the second part is easier. I think you guys would be able to put together a trade package in some way, shape, or form. And they would probably be aggressive in doing so. And I think Joe Burrow would have no issue going to Minnesota and playing, assuming you get to keep Justin Jefferson. I would assume you'd have no issue doing that. So I think those parts are easier, but I think it's going to take Burrow demanding a trade first.
Yeah. I actually think if Joe Burrow were to demand a trade, Mike Brown would say, go ahead and retire. Like, if there was one owner who would not let Joe Burrow go no matter what and would just say, I will ruin this team out of spite, it would be Mike Brown.
You might be right. Might be right.
It's not a bad thought. Okay. So very quickly, I did just want to ask you guys, after the Bears did, win this game on Saturday and they're sitting here as the 2 seed, and their fan base is completely jacked up, as you should, being the 2 seed. Does it make you guys think right now, I'm trying to think of the best way of phrasing this. Like after a performance they have against Green Bay, where they kind of get beat up the whole game and then have this spectacular finish the way they've been doing all season, they're in line to be the 2. And the only way they wouldn't be, I'm pretty sure, is if they lose out, right? If they lose out and Philly or the Packers could jump them then.
Yep.
So it feels like the Bears, we have to say the NFC Championship. I know we said this last week, but again, the NFC Championship game has to feel on the table still, right?
For sure.
Like watching this, I'm thinking that at least throughout that game, I'm like, yeah, this team is probably gonna get upset in the first round, even if they do win this one. But the more that I dive into Chicago, the more I kind of think to myself, maybe they just have magic on their side this season. And Bears fans were getting mad at me saying, you can't just call it luck. And I that's not what I'm trying to do, because you have to give Caleb credit for the way that they closed the game there. He was unbelievable at the very end. But yeah, I just think Chicago, I just want to give them their credit and get it out there, because everyone was getting on me about the Bears and me talking down about them. I think Chicago is very good. If I had a gun to my head, I'd still probably pick Green Bay to upset them in the first round if they play in the 2-7.
I would as well.
I think Green Bay would probably be favored for that game. But even after
they just were, right?
Yeah, but the thing is I've been saying all year that I needed to see to believe in the Bears at all Caleb Williams have a game where he produced significant value in the passing game, right? Not just one drive, but having a few really important drives, driving a lot of value. And this was one of the first games this season, really the first game this season against a good opponent where he did that. So I certainly think I'm higher on the Bears after what we saw this week than I was before, but the consistency from Caleb Williams still isn't there. We saw that he can do it, but I'm just not sure that he will.
So it's still a matter of time.
Playoffs.
You see, yeah, I'm sorry to bring the game back up again. As soon as we bring it up, you see Andy's face just kind of like...
Oh, no, I was looking at something else.
No. Sorry, so why don't we close it up here with the week 17 in the NFC North? Again, the Packers have an opportunity.
Just really quick on the Bears, just really quick. I think their defense, obviously their turnovers are incredible and they continue to get them at a high level. If that ever dries up, their defense is really, really bad. Even Malik Willis would have been able to, and probably should have carved through them even more. Then maybe they just say opportunistic and continue to get those turnovers, which in case, they can hang with anybody. But I think they are very turnover driven. And if all of a sudden that dries up in any given game in the playoffs, I just think that is going to be their Achilles heel.
No, Bears fans, I'm sure, are tired of hearing about this. But the Bears went from 2018, a defense that generated a lot of turnovers, to being 29th in points against the next year. It was just not good for Chicago once the turnovers dried up then. I know they're tired of hearing about 2018, but it does feel a lot like that.
Well, it's something that when you get, if they play a team like the Rams, Stafford's been pretty good this year in terms of not throwing interceptions. And if they're not punching the ball out, I think you're right, Andy. They have been. We talked about before, the Packers didn't punt this game. And if Josh Jacobs doesn't fumble, they go up 10 in that situation. But they have been opportunistic, so you got to give them credit for it. It's just, that's the kind of stat where you go into the postseason, and when they're losing a game in the playoffs, it's like, well, they've been turning it over all year and they didn't get any today. You can hear Aikman saying it to Joe Buck right now. And it's something that you can't rely on. You can rely on the rushing attack. Their rushing attack's been great all season. And I even think Caleb's delivering in big moments is something that maybe you're not 100% confident in, but right now, at least, you'd be like, yeah, I trust him, and people should believe that you can trust him. But the defense continuing at this rate, maybe it's just a 1-year thing. But yeah, when you have the turnover luck on your side or factor on your side, it changes games. So
it does. And just to go back to that statistic, they're not punting in the game. I don't know if you guys saw this one. I meant to bring it up earlier. There have been 10 games this season where a team hasn't punted. The Packers are 2 of them. The Packers are 0-2 in those games, and the rest of the NFL is 8-0.
Was the other one Cleveland?
I'd have to go back and look. It could be that one, or I'd have to go back and look.
Carolina, maybe Carolina.
I was going to say Carolina too, but I don't know.
Isn't it crazy that we're debating 2 losses where we're maybe they punted that game? It's just unbelievable. Did you put out a tweet, Andy, that said Green Bay could very realistically be 12-2 this year?
12-2 if they didn't have stupid special teams mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. at the very least, you guys got to be excited for 2026. You should be awesome. So.
Yeah, the special team mistakes will surely stop next year. Packers fans have said for the last 10 plus years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's never going to stop. They're going to continue to have special team mistakes forever. But it was Carolina that they didn't punt in as well. Lost 16-13.
Jeez, I remember watching that. Ziggy and I were together at a Vikings bar actually, and it was our buddy has a Viking bar up in Boston it was awesome. It was when we beat the Lions, and like midway through the third quarter of the Packer game, Ziggy's like, I think they actually might lose this. Like, what? So the whole bar was pretty happy when that came in, and we were like, that's not very good for the show. Here we go.
Out punted Carolina, or it didn't punt against Carolina, had 265 passing yards. Carolina had 102 and lost that game.
Well, that's a division leading Carolina Panthers. Andy.
It is a playoff team.
It's a playoff team right now. They're weird. Watch them just go win the whole thing. That's that kind of NFL season.
By the way, if some of these games that we've seen as of late, the Seahawks-Rams game on Thursday Night Football, Packers-Bears on Saturday night, even Lions-Steelers, so I know the Lions hopefully aren't a playoff team, because if they are, that means the Packers are not. But if some of these games are a harbinger of things to come in the NFL playoffs, my God, like this has the ability to be one of the most unpredictable and fun playoff seasons of all time. I think, because I honestly think every single game has the opportunity to be like any team could win this game. Like if you honestly said it was like even like Carolina versus either the Rams or
they just beat them, right?
Seattle.
They just beat the Rams.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. They just did, right? So no matter what the matchup is in any round, wild card through Super Bowl, you could probably convince me that any team could win any of those games and win it all, and I would 1,000,000,000% believe you.
It's just weird this year. This might be the season where a 10-point fourth quarter lead feels like the most vulnerable it ever has. Where you're watching these games, and Seattle. This was actually something that Seattle fans got mad about. The game was so good, I decided to do an instant reaction to that game, and kind of like Chicago. I was saying Seattle wasn't that, like, they weren't great. Darnold didn't prove a lot of people wrong throughout the course of that game. If anything, the narrative was, here we go again with the Rams, and they have a punt return touchdown, and then he throws, he ties it up, and they get that BS 2-point conversion where I was like, I don't think that the Rams walk away from this game thinking that they won't bury them the next time they play.
It is remarkable. And this goes back to the very first week of the season with JJ McCarthy, where all of a sudden we ignored the first 3 brutal, god-awful quarters of that game because he played a great fourth quarter, and all of a sudden he was the NFC Player of the Week or whatever. It is so remarkable of how, like, what have you done for me lately, or what was the final taste in your mouth from that game? Because again, Caleb and Darnold, through 3.5 quarters of their respective games, the talking points were about to be doom and gloom for probably both, of like, same old Sam Darnold, and is Caleb Williams ever going to be able to be the quarterback that they need him to be in Chicago? And then instead it's like everything's perfect, and the Rams and Green Bay are the ones that end up with all the question marks. It's remarkable how that works.
Yeah, but it does make you think when you look ahead to all these teams may play again I think actually it's likely the Packers and Bears play, and it's actually likely the Seahawks and Rams play again. Going into that game, now, of course, Bears fans should think they can win. They clearly can. And the Seahawks, they've played close games all year. But I still think Rams and Packers fans should be looking at those games saying, like, yeah, as long as we don't really screw something up, we're the better team on paper. And it is just a strange league with, MVP votes are, if Jordan Love wins last week against Denver, he might very well be the favorite after that game to win MVP, or right behind Stafford. It's very, what have you done for me lately?
The odds of the Bears getting the 2 seed are about 67%, and the odds of the Packers getting the 7 seed are about 67%. And even if it's not that exact matchup, there's probably the best probability is that the Packers are the 2 seed and the Bears are the 7 seed, and that's where they match up on the opposite side of it. So yeah, the odds that they meet in the first round are extremely high.
That'll be fun. All right, so you guys want to look ahead real quick to Week 17 in the North? We'll start off the Christmas Day game. The Lions and which you have to think Netflix is pretty pissed off that they have this slate for Christmas, and it's Dallas, Washington, irrelevant. Lions-Vikings, basically irrelevant. I mean, well, if McCarthy's out, then it's just. I have no desire to even watch if JJ doesn't play, and then you have Denver and Kansas City, which if you told everyone, Denver, what are they, 11-4, whatever their record is right now, was 11-4 going into this game, you'd think, we got it. Like, that's the night game. And here we are with the Chiefs. I don't even know who will be playing quarterback for them in that game.
Will the Chiefs have a quarterback for this game? Are they just going to run Wildcat?
Maybe, let Kelsey go out with a bang. Just put him under center.
Let him at quarterback the entire game. I'm all in. Let's see. Phillip Rivers came back. Is Steve DeBerg still available? Can we get Steve? Is Steve Bono out there somewhere? Can we get old Chiefs quarterback somehow?
And Trent Green will be making an appearance. Like, it's just, yeah. So the Vikings are 5.5 point dogs to the Lions.
That's not enough.
I mean, like, how many points would you give them, Ziggy?
Assuming that everybody's going to be playing, I'll even throw in JJ McCarthy being healthy and being able to play just for the heck of it. I don't see the Lions winning this by less than double digits. It's just very hard for me. I know I've been down on the Vikings, and the more down I've been on them, the more they've gone on this big winning streak. No, I'm sorry. The Lions win by double digits. They keep their playoffs hope alive. Lions 38, Vikings 14.
I'm with Ziggy. I don't think this ends up being close, but I would appreciate if you guys wanted to help the Packers out. But you guys can go 2-0 or 0-2, and it's okay. If the Packers make the playoffs in either of those scenarios. If you go 1-1, we need the right 1-1. You can't lose to Minnesota and beat Green Bay. That's the nightmare scenario, because then Green Bay probably has to beat Baltimore to get in. So I will almost take you guys going 2-0 or 0-2 in the next 2 weeks. Just don't go 1-1, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I think I have to pick Detroit to win. It would be more beneficial for us if Detroit wins too, in basically every way. Unless if JJ comes. And now if JJ plays and looks unbelievable, that would be awesome. But I expect Detroit to win. Although the Lions they did not play well against Pittsburgh. I don't think that they're trending in the right direction, even if they were to get into the playoffs. So I'll go Detroit, but I'm very confident Green Bay will get that playoff spot. Then Saturday. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, did you see the Ben Johnson Detroit Lions stat?
No.
In Dan Campbell's coaching career with Ben Johnson, he's 36-15 with Ben Johnson on the team. Without Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell's 11-20-1.
Wow. I mean, that was actually something I brought up with my dad yesterday after the Lions lost. And I think everyone likes Dan Campbell, and most people think he's a very good head coach. But there's got to be a question of, if you could go back in time, if you were a Lions fan, and last year swap Campbell out and Johnson in, like, would you do it? I think there's a handful of Lions fans who probably would.
I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, and you look at what Chicago's doing right now, it's pretty crazy. Jets fans have to be like, "You kidding me?" Like, that's the coordinator who gets it. Okay, the next one, Saturday night, chance to clinch for you guys, Andy. You're 2.5 point favorites over the Ravens right now. I'm imagining
back and forth in large part, I'm sure, due to we have no idea who's going to play quarterback for either team at the moment. Malik Willis, Jordan Love, Lamar Jackson, all beat up. Speaking of, I'm sure Peacock not super thrilled, and the NFL not super thrilled that this looked like it was going to be Lamar Jackson, Jordan Love with tons of playoff implications and everything. And now it might be Clayton Thune and, and Huntley, dueling it out in a game that nobody really cares about. So we'll see what it ends up being. I'll take the Packers simply because they're at home. But if, like, all of a sudden it's Clayton Thune versus Lamar Jackson, I'm feeling pretty Ravensy in that situation. And if all of a sudden it's, Huntley versus, Jordan Love or even Malik Willis, I like Green Bay's options a lot better in that situation. So as we're recording this on Monday, again, it's tough to say, but I'll just take Green Bay based on home field at the moment.
If the Ravens had won and the Lions had won last week, this game would have been completely irrelevant to Baltimore in their playoff odds, because they would have needed to beat Pittsburgh week 18. So they probably would have rested a bunch of their guys who are hurt. Unfortunately, this game is now extremely relevant for the Baltimore Ravens. They will be playing everyone they can, but I still think the Packers are going to be able to win this one. Green Bay 17, Baltimore 9 in a really, really ugly game.
This is almost a matchup of two somewhat cursed teams this year. I mean, obviously the Packers have had a cursed year, and Baltimore with Lamar, even if Lamar plays in this, like, if you get Malik and Lamar, like you just said, Andy, Lamar's clearly been hurt. and
he's not himself.
There's something going on. Even if his hamstring's fine. I mean, he's under the weather all the time now, and we got the back injury. Like, it just feels very off with Lamar Jackson. So I think Green Bay, and I think Green Bay is still a very good football team, which is a testament to their depth. But I'm going to go Packers as well. And the only world where I switch over to Baltimore is if Clayton Tune winds up playing in this game, which I know we don't know anything right at this point in time. I'd be a little surprised if one of the two can't go for the Packers. And then
by the way, last time Tyler Huntley started against the Green Bay Packers, do you want to guess the stat line?
Oh, I'm trying to remember this game. Did you guys go to Baltimore?
No, it was in Green. I think it was in Green Bay. I could be misremembering that though.
No, what was the stat line?
He was 28 of 40 for 215 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, rushed 13 times for 73 yards and another 2 touchdowns. He had 4 touchdowns on the day and accounted for 288 yards. Packers won 31-30 though.
All right, so you want Lamar Jackson to play in this
clearly.
game.
Clearly. A little bit more worried about Tyler Huntley at the moment.
And the last game, a big one, it's still a big one. The Bears and 49ers on Sunday Night Football. San Fran's a 2.5-point favorite. So if you guys win, you'll be in a position then where you're, no strings attached, like you guys are in the playoffs, and you get to sit back and root for San Francisco and hope to be the 2 seed again, right? You need Philly to lose, right?
No, sorry. In order for Green Bay to take over the number 2 seed, Green Bay has to go 2-0 and Chicago has to go 0-2.
Oh yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, no, sorry. I know that. I meant like you'll be like back in the 2 seed conversation with that game. But you need Philly. You guys have 5 losses?
Yeah, I think Philly would have to get so Green Bay is currently 9-5-1 and Philly is 10-5. So yes, and not that there's going to be a tie, but Philly would have the tiebreaker as well. So the Green Bay is going to need Philly's not going to lose to Washington in Week 18. You wouldn't think so.
At Buffalo.
Philly will need to lose to Buffalo in this game as well.
I mean, there's a good chance if you beat Baltimore that Buffalo beats Philadelphia and the Niners beat the Bears, and all of a sudden you have a legitimate shot at hosting a playoff game. But
just need Detroit to beat Chicago in the final week and Green Bay to beat Minnesota, and Green Bay's the 2 seed.
Yeah, no, it's picture perfect again for you guys. So Niners and Bears, who do you have?
Niners big.
Wow, that a little spite in that, or
no? I think we've seen it. We've seen this in playoffs past, and we've seen this in regular season games past. When you have an emotional game like that, where you come back and have I don't want to say but kind of a fluky victory at the end. Like there just seems to be a bit of a comeback to the world sort of moment the following week. We don't know what's going to happen in San Fran and Indy as we're recording this, and maybe there's an injury or something different that changes the mindset. But if it's straight up, I think in San Fran, especially Chicago going West Coast, I'll take San Fran by at least a touchdown.
I'm with Andy on this. I really like San Francisco's offense. The defense is really beat up, but it's not as if Chicago's the 85 Bears either. I think that Brock Purdy provides a lot more to this offense than people think. They've been incredibly efficient with him back. They handle the Colts and they handle the Bears handily.
By people, do you mean me, Ziggy?
Yeah, I mean you specifically, Paul. Look, I still think the 49ers have a decent chance at getting the 1 seed.
Yeah, well, so we're recording this before they play the Colts on Monday night.
But if they lose to the Colts, I'm going to look like a fool. Yeah, but they're not going to lose to Phillip Rivers.
You have to assume they're winning that football game, and barring any terrible injuries, I'm going to pick the Niners to win, but I don't think it'll be a blowout like you guys. I think it's going to be a good game. Chicago really hasn't got blown out. I'm trying. Have they had a other than Detroit?
The Lions
in week 2?
The Lions
the Lions destroyed them.
But Chicago's done a good job staying in games.
Yeah, well, and the way they play and their offense with the run dominance, usually they have pretty good clock management. I know the Packers destroyed them in time of possession up until the very, very end. But really, no, the entire game. I mean, you guys were inside the 15-yard line the whole time. So I got the Niners in a close one. Wouldn't be surprised if the Bears win and lock up the 2 seed. So, all right, we'll wrap it up there. Again, kind of an unconventional recording with the power outage in my house. But I was telling Andy and Ziggy, I guess that's what I get for cracking a joke to Ziggy right beforehand. Someone was upset. Yeah, Ziggy with a little mischief there. So yeah, go ahead, Andy. I guess you had a horrible Saturday with the game, but it feels like the Packers are actually in a better position than maybe like a week ago with the playoffs berth looking likely.
I don't know if I can go that far because obviously win against Chicago with it right there that they would have had the ability to have the 2 seed in the NFC North outright just by winning their final 2 games. And now both quarterbacks are hurt, which doesn't make me feel any better either. So yeah, I don't necessarily, I'll let you close it out because I'm not in a great spot to talk any closing out at this point.
Yeah. I was trying to think like, I'll end it with a nice Skol Vikes here, but JJ not even playing hurt. So you know what I'll say? I'll say, for everyone watching, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah. Hope everyone has a great week with their families and,
Cheers.
Hopefully it gets better football-wise.
There's more important things than football.
That's not true.